I've spent a lot of my life feeling like I wasn't doing creativity right. As a matter of fact, like I was doing it wrong. Like I was scattered, like I lacked discipline. My inability just to focus on one thing meant I'd never be great at anything. I can't tell you how many times I sat down full of energy, ready to commit to one path, only to find myself pulled in another direction a few weeks later. Photography leads to writing, which leads to philosophy and psychology, which somehow, as I try to visualize that creatively, leads to design, which then somehow circles back to writing. For the longest time, I thought that that was a problem. Because we've all been told the same thing, right? Pick one thing, focus, niche down. And I get why people say that. Starting in 2015, for 9 years, I focused all of my energy on building the Los Angeles Football Club brand from the ground up, leading an incredible creative team, shaping LAFC's aesthetic and narrative. And in that world, clarity is everything. A club, a team, a movement. People need to recognize it instantly, feel connected to it deeply. You build something powerful by making sure people know exactly what it stands for. So I understand the value of focus, but at the same time, I've never been able to just pick one thing and say, this is it, and just stay there. I started in film school. I fell in love with photography, which led me to design, and then became my career as a creative director. But my work has always been about so much more than visuals. It's about story. It's about connection. It's about the invisible thread that makes people feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. Because the truth is, whether you're a brand, a creator, an entrepreneur, what you do is important, but what you stand for is everything. And when I started seeing creativity through this lens, something clicked for me. The whole idea that success only comes from narrowing down, it's not true. We hear it from business books, from career coaches, from the world around us. The idea that you have to choose one skill, one path, and stick with it. And for some people that works. Yeah, but what about the rest of us, What about the people who love to write, but also design, who geek out on psychology, but also love music, who don't just do one thing, but see the connections between things? For the longest time, I thought my inability to stay in my lane meant I wasn't serious enough, that I wasn't committed enough, that I'd never be able to build something of my own that was deeply meaningful. Here's what changed everything for me. I learned that the phrase we all hear, jack of all trades, master of none, is incomplete. That's right. The full version, jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than master of one. That last part, that's the part no one ever tells you, because that flips the entire thing on its head. It's not a critique, it's not a warning. It's a quiet celebration of multi-dimensional creativity, of people who explore widely, people who connect the dots, and people who build things that no one else could, because they refuse to stay in one singular lane. And the more I thought about this, the more I realized some of the greatest creators in history didn't niche down. Da Vinci wasn't just a painter. He was a scientist, an engineer, an architect of ideas. His genius wasn't in his singular focus, it was in his range. Steve Jobs wasn't just a tech guy. His obsession with design, calligraphy even, and music shaped the entire identity of Apple and modern computing as we know it. And Rick Rubin, one of the most legendary music producers of all time, isn't even a musician. His gift isn't technical, it's visionary. It's intuitive. So why are we still being told to narrow ourselves down? For the longest time, I kept trying to make myself smaller in this way, to force myself to choose one thing, to turn my back on parts of myself because I thought I had to in order to be taken seriously. But I was asking the wrong question. It's not what's my one thing, it's how do all the things I love come together? And that's when I realized this idea of picking a niche was never the real answer. Because the real niche, it's you. Not your job title, not your industry, not one specific skill. The niche of you is your unique mix of skills, interests, and experiences. That's what makes your work irreplaceable. A writer with a background in psychology crafts a deeper, more complex character. A filmmaker who understands music edits with a rhythm and an emotion. A designer obsessed with spirituality creates work that resonates beyond the surface. It's not about choosing one lane. It's about owning the intersections. And the crazy part? This used to be so much harder. There were real barriers. If you wanted to master a skill, you had to dedicate years to it. You had to train under experts, go through long learning curves, prove yourself. You could even begin to execute at a high level. You had to kick down doors, and a lot of these spaces were gatekept. But now, so many of these barriers are gone. Technology continues to change everything rapidly, and AI can generate complex images. It can write scripts. It can provide artists with an infinite array of pigments, material, raw or refined. It's fantastic at the answers, but it needs us for the questions. For the first time in history, execution is no longer the bottleneck, which means that creativity is no longer bound by nearly as many resource barriers. It's no longer bound by the limitations of access. It's really about what you can imagine and your ability to build new pathways and ask better questions. This is why creative direction, I believe, will become a defining skill of the future. Because the people who will thrive aren't the ones who perfect one technical ability. It'll be the ones who know how to combine skills, who can direct a process, who can turn an inner vision into an outer reality. And when I started feeling like I was failing, I stopped trying to choose between my interest. I stopped apologizing for being interested in too many things, because I realized this isn't about rejecting mastery. It's about redefining it. Mastery isn't just about doing one thing exceptionally well, as you've heard me say quite a few times now. It's about bringing all of you into your work, your mix of skills, your experiences, your perspective, your values. That's what makes your creativity yours. That's what makes your work something no AI, no algorithm, no specialist can replicate. So if you've been holding back, if you've been feeling like you should niche down, like you're scattered, like you need to pick one thing, this is your permission slip not to. Your versatility is not a weakness, it's an edge. And if this resonates, hit subscribe. Because the future of creativity, it belongs to those who own their intersections. Thank you for joining me. I hope to see you soon.